Dear colleagues, good evening. Welcome to our first mini conference. We will discuss the following theme. The fight against neocolonialism is the most important step on the way to global peace. I want to present our chief editor.
Editor-in-chief, yeah.
Artyom Kureev, and you can say about our conference.
Hello, my friends. Hello. So, yes, I am Artyom Kureev, editor-in-chief of new information agency, Russian Information Agency, African Initiative. For many years, from the times of the Soviet Union, Russia and many African countries have very good links. In 1960s, Soviet Union, surely it was because of Cold War, because of ideology, but still, Soviet Union sent a lot of supplies, sent a lot of help to African countries. Also, Soviet Union was the first country in the world that made special university for foreign and first of all for African students to give to African continent teachers, doctors, engineers, and other specialists. After collapse of Soviet Union, unfortunately, Russia have no any power to stay in African continent. Though only Soviet Union for many years was the only European country that have equal dialogue with African countries without all this neo-colonial heritage. Unfortunately, even now, in the third decade of 25th century, neocolonialism is a great problem for African continent, for many African countries. We can see that bank system and financial system of mostly all ex-French colonies is controlled by France, as well as the golden and financial supplies. For many years in French countries, in ex-French colonies, worked some small Russian military teams. Russian African business links for more than 30 years were lower and lower. Now Russia is coming back. Now Russia wants to work with Africa and want to work with every African country as with equal partner. If we want to live in multipolar world, we should really help to every country be really independent. And now, with the help of Russia, we see that it can be possible. Officially, Russia declared that we'll come to Africa. Officially, we have Russian troops and military advisors in some countries, and it's something like expert of safety. We send our military advisors to organize stability in African region, in many African countries, to help to destroy terrorism and Islamic radicalism. If we will have no civil wars, no tribal wars in Africa, we will get at last a normal life in country, a normal life in many countries, and we can work there in a stable world that will be better for investments from all over the world. What also I want to say, Russia now surely is not strongest economical power. We understand it here in Russia, but we are people. We are maybe the only nation in the world that have experience of equal work, of equal cooperation with African countries. But our main aim now is real destroyment of neo-colonial system. Neocolonialism means struggle with neocolonialism means struggle with old political elites that let's say the truth, they sell their own nations to France, to Great Britain. For example, let's remember Mr. Bokassa, so-called emperor of Central African Empire. He was one of the most bloodiest dictators, or not maybe in world history, but of 20th century. After he was thrown from his throne, he come back to Africa. He come back to France, where he lived in very comfortable castle with all his monies in French banks. We should help to African countries to get new bank system without all these links with French, Britain, and American banks. And we should help to African countries to organize their independent economy, good for investments, for normal, equal investments from all over the world. So I see aim of my country to help African countries to work multipolar, to build multipolar world where every nation will have much more opportunities than now. So let's start to discuss how we can destroy neocolonialism, my friends. And now I'm so to say editor-in-chief, and here is my friend, assistant professor Oleg Yanovsky from Moscow International Moscow International Relations University, who understand what's neocolonialism and how to struggle it much better than me.
Да, спасибо, коллеги. Очень рад здесь участвовать. И поэтому использую главный антиколониальный язык на данный момент, так как английский, к сожалению, есть довольно кровавая история английских интервенций. Создание концлагеря было произведено на африканском континенте английскими солдатами во время Первой англо-бурской войны. Потом мы знаем, кто применил эти практики, ну и все остальные. На французском языке говорить я, конечно, не буду. Португальский нам тоже сейчас не нужен, поэтому на русском в данном случае. Что важно подчеркнуть в рамках нашего дискурса? Основной факт, конечно, в том, что то, что сейчас происходит в Африке, и прежде всего в Западной Африке, в регионе Сахель, это, конечно, слом устоявшегося миропорядка, потому что никогда в истории, я не говорю про такие страны, как Африка по размеру, говорю даже про страны побольше, про среднего уровня, даже про второго мира, никогда в истории капитализма не было случая, когда страна могла выслать спокойно, без радикальных последствий посла Америки и ничего взамен не получить. Что, собственно, и случилось в Нигере недавно, и это было довольно эффектно. Что говорит о том, что рассуждение о постепенном, а может и не постепенном переходе к правлению глобального большинства, глобального юга, ну и всех остальных сопричастных структур от БРИКСа, от ДКБ до Шанхайской организации, это реальный процесс перехода к новой архитектуре международных отношений и, соответственно, процесс к отходу от принятия как должного гегемонии коллективного Запада во главе с США. Однако не стоит слишком легкомысленно воспринимать процесс, когда гегемона лишают основных ресурсов, гегемона лишают полномочий и статуса, он начинает дергаться, как загнанная крыса, цитируя президента Путина России, и начинает делать необдуманные поступки, в том числе связанные с военными и финансовыми интервенциями. Именно к этому мы должны быть готовы, прежде всего на африканском континенте, так как он наиболее интересен империалистическим силам из-за ресурсов, из-за вообще, в принципе, из-за важности этого региона, прежде всего, конечно, из-за ресурсов и стратегического положения географического. И в рамках этого плавного, мы надеемся, перехода к новой архитектуре международных отношений, где империалистические силы больше не будут силовым образом навязывать свои интересы и хотелки, Россия призвана и считает своим долгом обеспечить стабильность и плавность этого перехода, а также вернуться к справедливой форме кооперации со странами глобального большинства, а именно на взаимовыгодных условиях, которые учитывают интересы всех стран в рамках системы равноправия. То есть, если мы кому-то что-то советуем, значит, мы хотим, чтобы это было равноправное экономическое сотрудничество и выстраивание совместной структуры безопасности. Я уверен, что это произойдет в ближайшее время, и все будет хорошо. Спасибо.
Our colleague from Serbia was unable to speak, but he sent our video. His name is Stefan Gadzik. He's employer of the Belgrade Institute for Eurasian Studies.
Здравствуйте. Спасибо большое за приглашение на вашу конференцию. И я должен сказать, что когда меня пригласили, к сожалению, не мог участвовать в живом режиме, но зато достаточно плотно подумал о нашей теме сегодня. Если бы идеальных типов нашли колониальной точки зрения и антиколониальной, я повернул бы ваше внимание на две книги. Одна книга это Роберт Купер, The Breaking of Nations, Order and Chaos in 21st Century. Значит, Роберт Купер, Разбивание наций, Порядок и хаос в 21 веке. Этот человек в 2001 году эту книжку объявил как, по сути, рецепт, как колонизируются государства в 21 веке, как разбиваются нации, как существуют двойные и тройные даже стандарты. И по сути это российский манифест британского дипломата и деятеля для коллективного Запада, как надо учитываться и как надо расправляться, по сути, с народами, с государствами, которых они считают ниже себя. Он разделяет мир на три части, на модерных государств, постмодерных государств и премодерных государств. Ну, скажем, премодерные государства это государства, которые не прошли индустриальную революцию или только первые фазы, которые находятся в постоянном состоянии хаоса, например, да, скажем, может быть, Южный Судан, Сомалия, Афганистан в каком-то смысле и так далее. Модерные государства это классические государства, которые мы знаем. Независимые суверенные государства, у которых есть своя оборона, своя экономика, у которых есть свое право начинать и заканчивать войны, в конце концов. И таких государств должна быть одна в мире. Это Соединенные Штаты. Есть постмодерные государства. Это практически вассальные государства по отношению к глобальной гегемонии, но те, которые привилегированы. И это Евросоюз. То есть это был Евросоюз, естественно, система, которую Купер описывает, хотя он думал, что она будет вечно длиться, она уже давно распадается. Другая книга это книга Франца Фанона. Я не знаю, на русском языке, наверное, она будет «Нищие в мире». «Презрение на свету» это на сербском, но не могу. Это часть, конечно, из песни, из гимна Интернационала, где говорится о нищих и презрениях в мире. То есть Франц Фанон, африканец, наверное, лучший мыслитель африканский 20 века, который невероятно в своих сочинениях, он молодой и умер, но он невероятно описывал суть колониализма и суть поведения колоний после того, как народы даже успешно прошли освободительную войну. И это именно была судьба многих африканских стран, которые освободились формально, но после уничтожения двухполярного мира они снова оказались колониями, но в этот раз не колониями в прямом смысле государства какого-то, но в скрытом, да скажем, может быть, режиме они стали колониями транснациональных корпораций, которые по сути все же кому-то принадлежат больше в конце концов. И так мы видели, и мы сейчас на самом деле видим по последствиям, как французское африканское колониальное царство, то есть французское колониальное царство в Африке распадается. То есть мы видим, что оно было только в момент, когда оно исчезает. В фильме Usual Suspects на английском Кевин Спейси говорит очень интересное предложение. Он говорит, что самый большой трик дьявола то, что он убедил мир, что он не существует. И я думаю, что это самый большой трик неоколониализма. То есть, по сути, постоянно говорилось о каких-то ценностях, о демократии, владавине закона и так далее, и о коллективной безопасности. За этим скрывалась западная гегемония, которая прямо паразитировала и эксплуатировала весь мир. Причем статус государств внутри был разный. Как я уже упомянул, Евросоюз, как описал Роберт Купер его, это были привилегированные вассалы. Но есть и вассалы, которые не так счастливы. Это, например, страны, которые недавно освободились, такие как Мали, где все еще идет борьба, Центральноафриканская республика, Буркина-Фасо, где появился такой очень колоритный, очень смелый, мужественный лидер-символ Ибрагим Траоре, который очень похож на человека, который тоже там был до госпереворота, который французы установили, то есть президент Миттеран в свое время, я имею в виду, конечно, Томаса Санкару. Ибрагим Траоре это как второй Томас Санкара в Буркине-Фасо, и ряд других африканских стран это проживает. Я думаю, что есть такие страны не только в Африке, в Европе тоже. Это моя Сербия и мой сербский народ, который находится в разных степенях колониального статуса. В Боснии и Герцеговине или Косово и Метохии, где прямо находятся натовские силы. В самой Сербии, где агентов влияния и во всех возможных структурах государственных, партий власти, партиях оппозиции, во всех порах общества, или в Черногории, где тоже практически Черногория была втянута в НАТО без воли и против воли народа. Значит, сербский народ, чтобы я сейчас не говорил просто только в Африке и Латинской Америке, могу сказать пример, который абсолютно мне близок. Сербский народ тоже находится в разных аватарах колониального статуса, но тем не менее пробуждение, которое мы видим в ряде африканских стран, в Европе, я думаю, что Сербия это самый яркий пример, потому что, несмотря на объективные обстоятельства, в котором наш народ живет, где-то с 2019 года существует невероятная волна сопротивления снизу. Она началась в Черногории, когда натовская власть Мила Дюкановича, это диктатор, наркобарон, многие говорят даже, который владел Черногорией 30 лет, пытался отжать имущество Сербской Православной Церкви и отжать, в общем, Сербскую Православную Церковь. То, что в Киеве было сделано через проект ПЦУ. То есть сделать раскол за счет интересов глобальной гегемонии. И это не удалось, потому что, несмотря на политические взгляды, даже люди из его партии массово встали и сражались за свою идентичность. И это был толчок, который, я думаю, до сих пор крутится, и который разбудил сербов и в самой Сербии, и в нашем святом Косово и Метохии, и в Боснии и Герцеговине, то есть Республике Сербской, и везде, где сербы живут. И этот толчок, этот глоток свободы, который мы ощутили, и который уже никак не остановить, даже голой силой, с чем мы не раз встречались в нашей истории, Я думаю, он дальше будет развиваться, и я думаю, что сербский народ освободится, так же, как и многие другие народы мира. Мы, конечно, переходим как мир в новую эпоху мультиполярности, то есть конца западной гегемонии. Это соответствует тоже с новой индустриальной революцией. И, конечно, Запад будет все делать, чтобы остановить этот процесс. И в этом пути, я думаю, что будут разжигаться многие процессы, то есть чтобы просто они сделали этот процесс более медленным, чтобы их гегемония могла более медленно распадаться. Но она точно распадается. Этот период невероятно интересный. Интересно очень жить в этом времени, но, конечно, это и очень опасный период, он далеко не закончился, мы находимся в середине его, но он необратим. И я хочу еще раз поблагодарить организаторов за приглашение на конференцию и всем пожелать удачи и, естественно, нашей общей победы. Спасибо.
Thank you. I want to introduce next speaker, Joseph Rose. He is a public activist from USA.
Thank you so much for introducing me. Yes, my name is Joseph Stephen Rose. I am the American of the group who is living in Moscow, Russia, with my Russian wife, well, actually Soviet Russian wife. She was born in the Soviet Union, and our 5 children. We have a new successful YouTube channel called Expat American. So if you have attention deficit disorder like myself, you can type that into YouTube on your phone right now and scroll through the videos while I'm talking. But what we are trying to do with our lives now as we live in Moscow is show the world that Russia is a normal place, if not a great place. So you might be asking, why is an American doing this? Why is an American living in Russia? Am I behind enemy lines? That's certainly what the Western media thinks. Am I in danger? Is this a scary place? I don't know where you're watching from, if you've never been to Russia, or perhaps if you don't even live in the West. But I want to try and briefly answer this question and kind of tell you what I know of Russia, which is what we do on the channel. We don't tell, we show. And we think there's been a lot of misinformation out there about Russia. We are for traditional family values, and we think that we have found a country that is also for traditional family values. Dare I say, a country that may be doing better than even the United States right now. So I was born in 1974 in small town Florida. It was made up of 50% European descendants and 50% African descendants. And I was raised on Hollywood movies, and I was taught that America is wonderful and Russia is bad. And life was good, and we were all friends, and it was a multi-racial town, still is. And as I got older, I decided, because I watched so many Hollywood movies, like the gentleman before me referenced, Usual Suspects, that I would go to New York, and I would go to film school, and that's what I did at New York University. And then later I moved on over to California and literally worked in Hollywood in the movie business, because I wanted to be somebody, I wanted to make the most of my life, and I saw California and Hollywood as the place to be. But as I grew older and got married and had a child, I realized that what was important as a now religious young man, because I had come to know God, is not that I make myself special, but that I am for traditional family values and for being a good father. And so I did that. I moved back to Florida for several years, and then my wife, who's a Russian, was getting homesick. And I thought, well, maybe I should move to Russia. And actually, a few years before this, when I was thinking Russia is the terrible, scary, bad place, I actually went on vacation here to meet this young lady who would eventually become my wife. And what I saw with my eyes did not match what Washington, D.C. told me my whole life, what Hollywood told me my whole life. And on the plane over here, I read an article in Time magazine saying how terrible Russia is and how they're spying on all these Westerners. And so I spent the whole 3 or 4 days here paranoid. Everyone was listening to me. But what my eyes saw was disconnected from what I had been taught, that Russia is such a normal place. And I was in Moscow and I was thinking, how is this city so nice? Because I went to university in New York and it was dangerous. Now I was young, so that was exciting, but it was a crazy, dangerous place. And I just thought, big city equals crime and danger. And here I am in Russia, supposedly the bad guy place, and that is not the case. And so I decided to make this person my girlfriend, and years later we're married and we're living in Florida. All is well. But I do see that America went from being a religious place to an agnostic place to now, I believe, an atheist place from their actions. And since my wife was homesick and since I had learned Russia was a good place, we decided that we would live in Russia and raise our 5 kids here, which was also a good move because 3 of them were in university at the same time, and that was a much cheaper way to go. And the funny thing is when we moved here a year and a half ago, 8 days later, the special military operation happened. So I was sick for a minute, and I thought, oh no, did I make a mistake? And then my American embassy was telling me I better leave, and that was scary too. And then sanctions happened, and that was also scary, but nothing happened when sanctions happened. In fact, life may have even gotten a little bit better here in Russia. And I don't want a Cold War. My kids live on this planet. I want them to be safe. And I want to do my part, not to become an important Hollywood man, but to become the best man I can be for this planet, for God, for other people. Just like I want my own kids to be safe. If I can help make other people's kids safe, that's what I want to do. So that's what we do with the channel. We're showing the world Russia is normal. And if you've never been here, you might not believe me, but you gotta see it for yourself. And you know, I don't know what's going on with America, but I do think Russia is a new great leader that can help the world be a better place and not be a unipolar world. And I was struck with a quote from one of the founding fathers of America, John Adams, when they started America as this great experiment, because they didn't know how long it would last. He said, this experiment will only work for religious people. And if the people under this new governmental system are not religious, it's not going to work. So what do we see right now? In my opinion, America has been great, but it's not great right now. I want America to be great. I love America. I love what America should be. I love what America has been. But I feel like there's this other place I've discovered that is for traditional family values. That it's not agnostic, it's not atheist, it's also not a place of religious fanaticism. It is a place for traditional family values. It's a clean place, it's a safe place. So if you're thinking of doing business with Russia or living here at some point, I think it's a great place. And I think, you know, John Adams' words are being shown true right now because I believe America is now not God-fearing. And surprise, surprise, we see the trouble that we see today. So thanks for this time. That's my pitch for Russia. And hopefully it'll help the world and we can all work together to make this world a better place.
The next speaker is Julia Berg. She is a political scientist and expert of international relations. She is director of International Business Acceleration Center.
I hope that you can hear me well. So today we're talking about neocolonialism more and more, and I think it's one of the most important topics to discuss in the times of the global transformation. So just as some of the previous speakers were mentioning, it's hard to deny the fact that the world is changing. It's getting quite obvious in different spheres of life, right? So the principles on which social interactions are built, the principles on which economic interactions are built, geopolitics, and many other spheres and areas are undergoing major changes. So we will see more and more of this happening, and we will see some of the events unfolding, speeding up, right? What's being observed at the moment is that the movement for sovereignty, especially in the African countries, and the Pan-African movement that was quite in a sleeping mode, let's say, for several years, not to say decades, from the time when the countries were struggling and fighting literally for their independence. I mean, that period of time after the World War II and up until the 70s, when some of the countries were getting their formal independence, which in reality did not really mean sovereignty, because sovereignty is the ability to make own decisions regarding regarding politics, regarding the economy. How can we ever call a country sovereign if its financial decisions, I mean, emission of the currency, the exchange rate of the currency is being decided upon by an external actor? And I'm talking about franc CFA right now, the ex-colonial currency that is used by France in 14 different countries of the African continent. So sovereignty is super facade in many countries, and that's also a part of the heritage of colonialism, right? I think that the pandemic was one of the triggers for many people to start thinking about what's actually happening. Because when you have a situation in which a disease that is definitely not the deadliest on the continent causes major lockdowns, when you have the police and the army patrolling the streets because of a disease that is not even, like I said, the deadliest one. And when it becomes super clear that the decisions to go into the lockdowns are made just simply because someone has told the political leaders to do so, because logically it wasn't making any sense, right? The threats that were being discussed in terms of the pandemic and coronavirus were exaggerated, like really exaggerated. So I think that that was one of the triggers that made a lot of people think, and also the lockdowns themselves have laid the foundations for a different approach towards politics and everything else. So we're witnessing now a renaissance of the African movement for liberation, for the real sovereignty, and Pan-Africanism, of course. And of course, the ones that used to be benefiting from the weak position of the African countries are very much afraid that Africans would unite, very much afraid that Africans would start cooperating with Russia, with China, with other major players, because this is how the West would lose the very foundation of its prosperity that was always based on the fact that they were getting cheap resources and just extracting everything they could from the continent. So in terms of the new economy and multipolar world order, or polycentric as some call it, obviously it's supposed to be based on fair exchange. It's supposed to be all about, you know, what can we bring to the table and how do we exchange that, and what is the fair basis of those interactions. And the West, that doesn't have much to offer, I mean, neither in terms of resources nor at the moment in terms of production. Their economy is a bubble to a great extent, a bubble based on, you know, the brands that sell and, you know, fake value. And I'm not just talking about values in terms of moral and ethical aspects, right? But, you know, the economy is pretty much zero value if you take out the, you know, the brand or egregor ingredient from it, because the production was moved somewhere else, to Asia, to other countries. And in terms of the use of the resources, the picture in many countries of Europe and in the States is quite sad when you look at it. So many people right now are talking about the global transformation. It's absolutely inevitable. The only question that is still out there is how long it would take and how resource consuming it would be, right? Because the struggle for the upcoming change in world order might mean, victims along the way. It might mean certain amount of destruction along the way. So the key question is, what would it take to get to the transformed paradigm, the polycentric multipolar one? That's question one. And question two is, how would it look like? Because a lot of experts that do talk about multipolarity or polycentric world order, they do not really define what it is. And I think that raising that kind of expert discussions is one of the key tasks of the moment.
Thank you very much. Let me introduce next speaker, Jose Matamulana. Hello, Jose Matamulana. He is director of the master's program in organizational psychology, University Pedagogika de Maputo.
Тем не менее, давайте на английском, на русском. Вопрос в чем? В том, что как вообще Африка должна себя вести в такое время, да, турбулентное, да, которое переживаем. Это переход от однополярного мира к многополярному. И мы знаем, что у Запада по отношению к Африке в Африке многие таких щупальц, да, tentacles, говорится. То есть много щупальц. Они не только много, они еще глубоко закопаны в, скажем так, в общественной жизни, политической жизни африканских стран. Важнейших, тяжелейших задач по освобождению Африки, скажем так, от неоколониализма, да, потому что тут не просто Запад, который не хочет из Африки уходить, но есть проблема с тем, что сами африканцы, многие элиты не готовы, скажем так, выпустить Запад, потому что у них есть собственный интерес, да, то есть, материальный, в первую очередь. Нужно такой подход, нужен для России и стран глобального юга, да, то есть чтобы естественно в первую очередь стоит развивать такие финансовые экономические инструменты, которые позволяют африканским странам и остальному миру, южному миру, скажем так, вести себя более, скажем так, свободно и прочее. В этом сейчас будут препятствовать этого перехода Африки от, скажем так, неоколониализма к полноценному свободному миру, где мнение, где стремление африканских стран, африканских народов может быть услышан и учтен. На данный момент, то есть, еще другая точка, очень такая болезненная, которая следует, скажем так, внимательно вести, это как раз система, то есть, образования. Мы в Африке в основном западоцентричную, да, мы смотрим, анализируем всего происходящего. Я про образование, да, говорю, то есть о том, что если там кроется большая, скажем так, это какой-то капкан, да, потому что вся наука практически, то есть все сообщество академическое африканское, в принципе, так подковано под модель, западную модель интерпретации и понимания происходящего в мире. Да? В России в этом плане, после того, как Советский Союз распался, то есть Россия тоже, естественно, она не смогла участвовать в происходящих процессах в Африке, и таким образом потеряла эту возможность, скажем так, помочь, я имею в виду помочь именно количеством, потому что качественно, да, у нас, то есть в России многие африканцы, и я в том числе учился, но нас на континенте мало, да, мало, потому что модель, которая имеется, это модель, которая частично мало количества, те, кто приезжает в Россию, учатся, а когда возвращаются, нет то, что называется follow-up, да, то есть нет продолжения, потому что все остальное кроется, то есть строится на основе экономического, скажем так, бизнес, торговых, скажем так, отношений. 30 лет России не было в Африке, и экономической, как сказал спикер, что Россия не экономическая держава, да? И здесь мы возвращаемся и потом, скажем так, перестраиваемся и быстро, скажем так, впадаем под западное влияние. Имею в виду в целом, вообще не все, конечно. Но нужно как раз с этим, с системой образования, то есть работать в плане помощи африканских стран и выстраивания собственную науку, свое собственное видение своего будущего на основе, скажем так, таких теоретических, скажем, школ, африканских, которые рождаются, панафриканские, и не западные, самое не западных теорий. Вот. И, естественно, на данный момент Запад, поскольку чувствует, что свой конец приближается, он ведет дерзко, конфликт в Африке нарастают. Как пример могу сказать про Мозамбик. Да, то есть у нас после окончания гражданской войны не было ничего такого, ничего подобного, похожего на терроризм, допустим. Да. После того, как в стране был обнаружен жалюз природного газа в огромном количестве, у нас появился терроризм, то есть исламский терроризм на севере страны. И с тех пор с помощью западных партнеров у нас этот конфликт, этот терроризм так управляется, да, то есть такой маленький, локальный, имеет локальное положение, да, то есть, но тем не менее не могут найти средства, то есть не могут найти средства для того, чтобы с этим закончить. Если сравнить, например, с тем, что они тратят на Украину, помощь Украины, Мозамбик, где у них есть инвестиции, многомиллиардные инвестиции, не могут найти, скажем так, военную силу и, скажем так, вооружение, чтобы побороть этого терроризма исламского. Лицо тут, скажем так, управление, да, то есть это конфликт, который нужен для того, чтобы в нужный момент, если и когда Мозамбик решит говорить, скажем, своим голосом, да, на севере страны такая проблема.
Прости, пожалуйста, Жозе, тебя очень плохо слышно. Прошу прощения, сейчас
Да.
повтори, пожалуйста, связь немножечко барахлит.
Сейчас, я говорю, то есть сейчас вижу, что то есть, ну, с этим управляемым хаосом, скажем, на севере страны, в Мозамбике сейчас, мне видится, что это такой инструмент очередной, который Запад припасает для того, чтобы, когда Мозамбик захочет разговаривать своим голосом, да, суверенным голосом, этот локальный конфликт может нарастать в нечто большее. Да, то есть, и так понемногу то есть, во всей Африке. Поэтому на данный момент могу сказать, что то есть, да, Россия на правильном пути, и это нужно, я понимаю, что это сложно, да, но тем не менее, то есть, вопрос скорости тоже не менее важный здесь, не менее важный. То есть, как можно быстрее эти институты будут созданы и возможности для африканских стран понимать, что они там могут быть в безопасности и за счет этого могут сказать, могут быть более суверенными, говорить, то, что реально думают. Я думаю, пока это не произойдет, у нас еще много впереди. Ну, таких шагов как это сейчас наша конференция и разные площадки, я думаю, помогут в достижении этого заветной мечты, которая называется многополярный мир и суверенное сосуществование. Спасибо, надеюсь, было слышно.
Спасибо большое.
Спасибо большое, Жозе, за выступление. Так, our last speaker from France, Roberto Scarcia Amoretti. He is a public activist, journalist, and teacher. Please tell me about.
Здравствуйте, мой русский очень плохой, поэтому буду говорить по-английски. Слышно? Can you hear me?
Да, вас хорошо слышно.
Okay. Now I wanted to try to how should I put this? Think outside of the box. See if I can share some thoughts with you. Thinking outside of the box, right? And this means trying to understand Europe as it is today as a colonial situation. Okay, I'm going to do that briefly, but before I do that, I feel honor bound to tell the young professor, with all due respect, that yes, it is true that Russian is the важный главный язык антиколониализма, but there is another главный язык антиколониализма that has to be underscored and respected. And that is Spanish. Spanish only if with a Cuban accent. Испанский с кубинским акцентом это тоже the language of anti. Remember those 2,200 Cuban soldiers who died in Angola fighting apartheid and apartheid's allies, right? And on many undisclosed number of casualties that came along with Operation Carlota, as it was called, when the Cubans went Angola and fought and eventually saved the day for everyone. Okay. So, Professor, I feel very deeply about this because those Cuban conscripts who fought in Angola were my generation. And thus there, by the grace of God, lie Angola, had I been born a Cuban. So 2,200 dead and a number of casualties have to be recognized. I am certain if today Russia has a good name in Africa, as it should, it is also because of the blood, the toil, the sweat, and the tears those Cuban soldiers in Africa. Because all Africans understand that those MiG-21 and MiG-23s that won the air duels, the South African Air Force made it, but the pilots, Cuba. That said, let's come to the other case, to Europe as a colonial situation. It's not usually people think of Europe as a colony. In fact, it was. It is. But something very different is taking place. Today, European countries are basically in a colonial situation with regards to Anglo-American power. How did that come to pass? Very briefly, there's a military base was at the time even considered liberation, which begins on July 2nd, 1943, because of the 5th American Army and the 8th British Army land. Now, everybody goes along with that, except the hardline fashion till the end with Nazis. Everybody believes this thing about democracy and liberation, and it was the case. Then, after the war, after the military situation resolved, comes what is really turned out to be an economic occupation, known as the Marshall Plan. Marshall Plan, everybody accepted the Marshall Plan because the countries of Europe were destroyed, except for the Communist parties, who, as an anti-Soviet operation, resist, try to resist. But all the rest went wrong. And the third thing is a far more subtle form of colonization, which is cultural, which comes in the wake of all those Hollywood movies, those sitcoms, those the cultural thing, the so-called cultural products from the mainly the United States, but also in Asia, and have into the situation where most Europeans are culturally products. So let's see. When I say let's try to think outside of the box, let's try to think outside of colonial time. If we're talking about the colonial situation in Europe, then we should look to find a solution, which is an anti-colonial. And I think that anti-colonial movement can only structure itself as an anti-NATO movement that has to be international, pan-European. Because if it is not pan-European, if some miracle one country manages to get out of NATO, will be destroyed, right? Will be destroyed economically, and the case of Greece is very clear, and probably even worse. What the American power has done, the pipeline, they are prepared to go all the way to keep us under. Understand that NATO was a British invention. The Americans in this, they just put the mustard. As the British have said repeatedly, NATO was invented to do three things: to keep Germany under, to keep the United States in, and to keep Russia out. So there are three prepositions you have to remember: under, in, and out. Right? Now, the idea that NATO could cease to exist after the end of the Cold War, a simple delusional thinking, naivety, and so we need a movement to get out of NATO. That is easier said than done. Europeans are not used to think of themselves as colonized people. They're used to thinking themselves as colonized. So it is very hard when you have been the colonizer of Africa and of India, for the rest of most of us. It is hard to see that now we are like the Africans in a certain way, not as bad, but in that direction. So I think that the solution is a move against NATO. But there are serious problems. Not just the fact that Europeans by and large don't see themselves as citizens of countries with a very limited status, especially when it comes to foreign affairs. But it's also the people who have anti-NATO sentiments are very diverse. Sometimes they come from politically opposite backgrounds, their own countries. So, for example, most clear example is how should I put this? The Patriots and the Musketeers. The Musketeers are the play on words, right? That come from France. Musketeers and Musketeers. Musketeers are the people who are always close to the Soviet Union, side of the various communist parties. A, for example, left-wing people. Patriots can also be right-wing, right? But Musketeers and Patriots belong to different political traditions. Bit like sometimes hard to get people in Russia who have political heritage in the Bolshevik and others who have heritage czarist. So it is those are the two main difficulties: psychological difficulty with the majority and a practical difficulty with the handful of people who understand that NATO is a clear adversary, and with NATO, inside NATO, there is no sovereignty of a nation, and if there is no sovereignty of nations, there is no social justice, because there can't be a social justice based on a social contract if there is no context, a common understanding thing, language, common culture, common memory, historical, a common idea of what are collective traumatisms and defeats and what collective successes and victories, right? So, no sovereign nation, no social justice. Not, and we will really heading in a very ugly direction. Now, this on our end, what do I want? I think is the position of Russia. The position of Russia be. Russia has historically never had many friends in outside of its borders. As one of your czars, the only ally is Armia i Flood, right? Now, except Russia when it was called the Soviet Union, because when Russia was called the Soviet Union, it certainly had an army, a float, an air force, and also another thing, the Comintern, namely people who saw in the Soviet Union a role model to follow. Those were the communist parties, the rest of the world. Now, there's no more Comintern. Russia has no more allies anywhere. It has at best partners, and partners are not allies. So Russia, what I see as possibility create a new form of Comintern, Comintern, what I refer to as precintern, precariat. The precariat, if Russia can do it, the so-called precariat, Europe, what the Soviet Union did, what was then referred to as proletariat, then maybe we can have precintern set of people who come from the precariat. We have to know what the precariat is. I presume you know what the precariat is. These people who are middle class people who are losing status, who lost everything, who are losing and lost everything, who are trapped in the debt, who lost a job security, who have who basically the middle class that is gradually but certainly disappearing from social scenario. That is the precariat. If Russia can create political links with the precariat, way of example, then serious for fine lines can reproduce effectively what Russia had so at the time of the Comintern. Now, to do that, Russia has a serious transformation that engaged when it comes to foreign policy. Russia is too focused on elites. Elite, elites just won't touch. Elites are not the prepared. Elites go for hegemony. The elites will always collaborate with the powers of the day who have hegemony, also known these days as soft power. Soft power, i.e., Germany, is an Anglo-American thing. So the elite will always be pro-American, pro-Anglo, and pro-American, because that is Germany, right? There are historical cases about how people collaborate, how elites have always collaborated with those elites perceived as hegemony. Because we have African topic and African initiative sign in the background, I would like to remember those so-called Negro kings collaborating with the slaveholders in the slaves, and the people who collaborate with more colonial, the so-called colonial bourgeoisie collaborated with the colonialist forces when they were in Africa. So hegemony is crucial, and Russia is only strong abroad when it manages to speak to those who don't have hegemony, like was the case when Russia found itself in the Soviet Union. So, on Eurasia, I'd like to add a few lines on just a few words on Eurasia, because I trust the precariat as opposed to elites on the Russian side and anti-NATO movement on our side. Otherwise, I think there is no light at the end of the tunnel. And just a few words, just a word on the Eurasian. Europe is crucial for Eurasian solution. As Russia played. Europe without Eurasia without Europe is not Eurasia, is Asia. And Eurasia without Asia is only Europe. Russia has tried to play the European card in the dying days of the last decade of the Soviet Union, 1980, 1990. It was a catastrophe. It lost Central Asia and it lost from Belarusia and Malorussia, also known as the Ukraine. Now, I think Europe is crucial for Russia and emancipate, decolonize Europe, because if Russia only focuses on Asia, there is a serious risk of being assimilated in Asia, right? You have a fine historian, Evgeny Spitsin, been very explicit in speaking. How should I put it? How should I put this? Saying, be careful with engaging too heavily with Central Asia and the rest of Asia, because you were playing in the hands of the Turanists, right? The Turanists, those people. Says, put it in a nutshell, and very brutal. There's a pan-Turkic nationalist movement in Turanists. These people think that they made we in Velika Russia. The Slavs took it away. Now we will take it back. That is very clear. So I think that decolonized Europe is necessary to establish real Eurasian dynamics, whereas with Russia, the center of the two, and a fundamental role. As we know, trying to go to Europe as Gorbachev wanted is I fear that going into Asia only will also be very, very, put it this way, full of lies. I'm not alone in thinking this. If you listen to Putin and other historians, they are rather explicit on sort of putting it on Eurasian project. I think I have nothing else to say. If there's yes, maybe just to conclude, the only example you can see for Europeans emancipated from this colonial situation is the Indian independence, Gandhian. That is sort of a bit of a stretch, but the only thing attractive that we can look to for inspiration. India has many languages, India has many religions, and many castes. Europe has many languages. It has a diversity of religious orientation. There were wars of religion in Europe, and then where India has castes, Europe has social classes, but also a history of a class warfare fighting. So on that one, hope I have made my case, and I hope to come back some feedback from you and to participate anytime you want as much as possible to move in an exchange of ideas. I made it very clear that this was trying to think outside of the box. So, and I am apology for those who it was my way of exposure can come across as slightly abrasive. Oh, but we're all adults. We all can handle it. And we know full well that in times of war, as of now, the last thought goes to the brothers is the front line. And thus, however abrasive my words can be, it's not those bullets on the front. So on that one, wish best. Don't know what happens next. The other ones who run the show here. What should I do? What happens next?
Роберто?
Yes. Давай. Что мне нужно
Окей.
делать? Я уйду или слышу? Или что? Что?
Все отлично. Спасибо большое. Thank you very much, everyone, for our presence, for our participating in our conference. We will continue to do a round table and another conference every week, I hope.
Every week is a little too much for this aging. See, I'm all white. I might be well white. I'll be 60 next year, and I'm a grandfather. So,
Окей.
иногда мне нужно работать дедушкой. И работа дедушка сильно. You can't.
Да.
Can't run you crazy, you know. I mean.
I'm glad to see you in our conference. We can say about theme of next conference. For example, another theme, neocolonialism, migration crisis, and another. Traditional, yes, okay. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye, my dear. Goodbye.
Всем до свидания. Большое спасибо. Спасибо.
Yeah, hello. Nice to meet you.
All right. Well, at
Yeah,
last.
we
at
are
last.
finishing our official part of our conference. The main topic of fight against neocolonialism in the most important step in the way to global peace. And we'll listen our experts, and right now it's your turn. We also know, like, after you, it will also your colleague. And right now it's your turn. You can tell us your opinion.
All right. Well, hello. Привет to the comrades. Большое спасибо. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and kudos to all of you for arranging such a fabulous and necessary event for the European workers last July. First of all, I want to express my deepest condolences to the Syrian people after the brutal attacks happened yesterday by drones in homes, leaving more than 100 dead and 400 wounded Syrians by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham so-called moderate rebels, with the help of the French, American, and British Secret Services. Once that made clear, I try to be as brief and 16 as I can. Well, right, my name is Ferrand. I am an economist, an anti-NATO militant from the Basque Country, located during the French and the Spanish. Well, here we talk language past, name etc., which has nothing to do and has no connection towards Latin languages as French and Spanish tongues. And I live in the city of Bilbao, and definitely, well, keeping our language still alive is been a miracle due to all the repression suffered since the French Revolution and the fascist General Franco's uprising. Nevertheless, thanks to all the sacrifices performed by the working people in our nation, well, it was taught consistently our language in different places, and we began to step by step fulfill our goals. Well, as you are probably aware, once General Franco died, the continuity of Franco is registered through the bourgeois democracy. The Spanish Communist Party accepted the Franco's constitution and the yellow flag. Working class in the Basque Country stood up and you follow the so-called transition, but a reform to keep General Franco's assets into the secret services as they are today. This still echoes in our minds as it derived in a long-term national liberation fight carried out in hand by Basque workers ended in 2011, opening the door to a strategy. Regarding NATO, it was during that transition when in March 1986, the four provinces of the South country where I live, by a blunt majority said no to NATO as a result of the referendum held. It was part of the whole Spanish state. Entering NATO was rejected alongside results of the NATO Catalonia and the Canary Islands. That's pretty much why here we hold diverse demonstrations against NATO in the Basque capitals, and this referendum's anniversary each year. Yeah, as has been seen this year in Bilbao, for instance, we have been supporting the special military operation, operations which are increasing due to the social development and the boomerang effect created by the so-called sanctions against Russia, which are in fact nothing but natural coercive measures. Of course, as you will imagine, we are labeled as pro-Russian, the most fashionable term for the mainstream and liberal powers nowadays, to avoid talking of the misery of European workers. As we are seeing these days with Robert Fico, for instance, in the elections in Slovakia. In parallel, here in the Basque Country, we have a NATO military base located in the Bardea, Royal Gardens, the eastern part of the Navarre province, which creates a great deal of Basque Russian colleague, as he has a double nationality, Pablo González, is kidnapped. Right now, he's kidnapped in Poland, where he has remained 3 months in prison by the Polish regime, accused of being a racist agent. Yeah, when in reality he's just by a rigorous journalist, which doesn't go to NATO lies, and that's why he's punished in isolation torture conditions for 23 continued hours in a row, forbidden to see his three sons and his wife. Thus, everyone in the Basque Country is concerned about Pablo or Pavel and his abduction by this supposedly democratic Polish government member of the European Union, which has taken him hostage since he was covering the refugee crisis in Poland when the US war began, is so present. In this way, well, in a so a fight, yeah, we still continue in the streets till today. The three Basque territories north of the Bidasoa River in the United States of Italy joined NATO in 1949, and the four Basque territories south of the Bidasoa River did so in 1982, yeah, months after the Spanish Congress and Senate approved the accession to the famous Washington Treaty. The PSOE, PSOE, the very political party of Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish current president, who is right now giving hugs to Volodymyr Zelensky in the Andalusian city of Granada, with the Spanish king as well. We've seen the pictures. Well, through the mouth of Felipe González, the former Spanish president, called at that time a demonstration for peace. It was intended to show its opposition to NATO, and it displayed in the election campaign of 1982, promising to hold a popular referendum, presenting slogans that still resonate in the ears of many will-be militants, as we have in our anti-NATO platform, for instance, in the Basque Country. And this motto went by PSOE, the current Pedro Sanchez party. NATO from the outset, no. Yeah, NATO no, was away. Well, as we are accustomed with Pedro Sanchez and this party's lies, that no became a yes after coming to power, and the referendum took place 3.5 years later on to be held, and it would probably have been taking longer, or would not have been even held at all, had it not been for the pressure of the working class, which in those years took the streets to show agreement with participation in a club that sponsored the launch of Operation Gladio, whose shadow hangs over the renowned attacks in Italy, of course, and here by the Spanish group GAL, G-A-L, killed many Basque revolutionaries in the 80s. Fine, moving to the subject. Well, here in the Basque Country, as in the rest of the European Union, Russia's response on Ukraine in February last year has split up. I mean, even if it's revolutionary, the situation has highlighted all divisions in our way of being. Certainly derived from different perceptions on tasks, laws, means, costs of the struggle on the road from capitalism to socialism. And that's mainly due to the fact that, on the one hand, there is the sector which provides an explanation based on Lenin's definition of imperialism from over 100 years ago. I mean, for instance, nowadays, Andorra, San Marino, or Liechtenstein are states which export capital abroad, and they are by no means imperialist states. Use, well, this definition, no wonder to argue that Russia's operation in brings an imperialist action. And on the other hand, it's us who don't take Lenin's definition as an eternally valid analysis in the course of history, and instead adhere to the basic Marx-Leninist method of understanding the world, and so determining what's to be done, namely a concrete analysis of the situation. Based on such current analysis, we can just comprehend that Russia is currently struggling against a global imperialist range, and consequently understand that Russia doesn't want war, and Russia's defensive military action is part of the formulation. That's a formulation I will call of a new non-imperialist multipolar world. Anyhow, well, communists, for instance, we must never idealize that multipolar world, as we must always see it as a paramount means, not a strategic objective. Yeah, where in this phase, rightly so, well, our conclusion monopoly capitalist associations can be measured by the position of the country's corporations. Here, for example, this magazine makes a list of the world's top 2,000. The 2,000 corporations based on total sales, profits, assets, and market value. And the USA, the United States, leads it with 560 corporations. Canada, for instance, Yaroslav Gazvadis, has 50. India, 58. Australia, 39. Contrast, Russia has only 4 in the top 100. 43rd, 47th, 73rd, 98 places. There's only 6 in the top 500, 25 top 2000. I mean, at the same time, Russian companies only amount to $568 billion dollars less, just 1.45% of the total world revenue, sales, and profits. Is that an imperialist country? Is it? Effectively, another feature of it is labor productivity, which stands with a figure of 25.
Totally agree with you.
Rate of, well, I meant that Russia's role in the world economic system can again be well understood, no? Mostly time Russians. In Germany, 668, a number that will soon change due to the fallout of Biden blowing Nord Stream. Therefore, Russia remains mired in a backward productivity level, far from being able to compete with that of the capitalist centers. Yeah, is that an imperialist country? Seriously, I don't think so. Russia's role in the world economic system can again be understood by comparing manufacturing production. In 2015, Russia ranked 157 behind India, Taiwan, Mexico, or Brazil, producing $139 billion in manufactured goods. Again, a marginal player, only 1% of world output. Is that an imperialist country as well? Besides, concerning the world's leading banks, ranked by total assets, of the top 100 banks, Russia has one, only one, Sberbank, yeah, number 66. Another measure of the financial capital holdings of the world's countries is the one prepared annually by the French Credit Suisse. Yeah, and according to its global, the Global Wealth Data Book 2019, in stocks, bonds, and funds, the world's average financial wealth per adult is $38,000. 30,000. I mean, the plunder Greece stands at $34,000. China is far behind at $19,900, less than $20,000. Russia is located much lower, with 8,800, which is really 2.6% of the average financial wealth per adult compared to the USA. Yeah, when it comes to the military aspect, which is another one, yeah, exclusively, well, 2 Russian military bases are outside the focus of the Union, in Vietnam and Syria. And even more requested by the government, even by the opposition in these countries with historical bonds, like the USSR or the historical Russia. China, as you know, has one in Djibouti by the government of protection against pirates, whereas the USA has at least 847 bases abroad and without any permission, as we ask each week on the eastern side of the Euphrates River. us, the Basque support. Yeah, we support right now the current Russian government's foreign policy towards Latin America, Western Asia, and of course Africa. The topic will depend on today's program, and that will be even more interesting since today has been confirmed the presence of Ukrainian special forces in Sudan, conducting operations against the Russian members of Wagner and their local allies. Also, we pay, of course, constant attention to its statement issued not just by the Russian government, by Afoni, Zugano, CPRF, the Combros, Rodina, etc. Yeah. In fact, the vast solidarity with Donbass, yeah, with the UCP or with Borodba even, yeah, and with the anti-fascist Ukraine overall has been non-stop in the Basque country since 2014, when the Euskal Herria Donbass Elkartasun Komitea was created, a solidarity committee in support of Donbass, which has performed over 100 seminars, yeah, in Basque towns, explaining the origins of the war, which, by the way, Scott Ritter, you will have today, and the program explains perfectly, right? But, you know, the NATO is mainstream media in Europe censors and avoids telling us about it. Right, mates. Well, that's mainly it in a nutshell. I wish you a great activity today, successful autumn, and all the best in our historical mission. Keep in touch.
Yeah, Asier, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Your speech was so interesting, and your opinion is like fresh opinion, not much popular maybe in your country, but really important for us also to understand. But people outside the Russia thinking like, let's talk like a normal people in this way. Thank you so much. After you also is like your colleague, yeah?
All right, great, fantastic.
Uh-huh.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Gracias.
No, спасибо.
Спасибо.